back to the Uncorporate World, the show where we question the rules, challenge hustle culture, and say the quiet parts out loud about work. Because let's be honest, we are living in a moment where burnout is basically professional branding. Layoffs are still rolling through major US companies, and AI is reshaping entire industries. Job descriptions are expanding while teams are shrinking. And somehow the expectation is still be grateful, be available, be productive, and don't complain. We've normalized 10 a.m. emails. We've normalized quick calls that are never quite quick. We've normalized saying yes because we're scared to say no. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people aren't overwhelmed because they're incapable. They're overwhelmed because they don't have boundaries. And in today's environment, setting boundaries can feel very risky, especially if you're early in your career or if you're trying to prove yourself, especially if you've been told easy to work with means always being available, which is why today's conversation is going to be such a good one. We're talking about boundaries, burnout, and why saying no almost feels illegal in modern work culture. And honestly, this is something that hits differently depending on where you are in your career. So before we bring in our guests, I want to bring in my wonderful co-host, Alexis, because she is a high school student and we want stepping into the future workforce. So we want to check in and see what you think about this topic. How are young adults looking at the world today? What are you thinking about what you are seeing out there? Does it excite you? Does it make you nervous? So welcome, Alexis. Super happy to have you back with us again today, and just love to get your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I'm very excited for this topic. I think it applies to a lot of what I see within my peers, but also the adults around me. I feel like more and more adults in the workforce, like my own parents, they work more overtime, and I can even see them getting stressed with more workload. And especially within my peers, I feel like we're starting to feel that stress too as colleges come down upon us. I feel like it's hitting us earlier and earlier in high school. Yes.
And do you feel like there's a bigger burden for you to have a path carved out to know what it is you want to do? And are you feeling that, as you're getting ready to fill out those college applications and heading in that direction, that there's more on your shoulders to have a fuller transcript, to have more diversity, to be more competitive?
Yes. I feel like nowadays, applications are looking so diverse, and people are saying, "Oh, you have to have this amount of awards, this amount of AP classes," and it's very stressful for me and others around me when we don't know exactly what we want to head into, into the future. Like, what jobs do we specifically want to do? Yes.
And so, Alexis, what do you personally do to kind of cope with the stress and put in your own personal boundaries? And how comfortable are you saying no to people if you feel you can't get it done? Or do you feel that sometimes being at the age that you are, being at the position you are, you don't have that opportunity to really say no?
I feel like a lot of times at my age, as a student, I sometimes feel like I don't have the ability to say no, that some things I do just need to accept.
Mm.
And it's definitely a difficult balance finding when I should say no to things, when I should accept things. Especially I think when I was younger, actually, I struggled with this a lot more, but it's having a clear priority of what will help or what will harm my mental health. I think it's very important to prioritize this mental health, even when you're very stressed, even when there's so much work around you that needs to be done. Yes.
Well, I guess the exciting news is that our wonderful guest today, Sheryl Green, who we're going to bring on with us, is going to tell us a little bit about how to say no, how to put those boundaries in place, and how to build a little bit more resilience. So let's welcome Sheryl. Hi, Sheryl. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
Very good. So excited to have you here today and talk about such an important topic that I think is facing many of us in today's, not just workforce, but our personal lives and everywhere.
Yeah, I was listening from backstage, and Alexis, I'm already impressed with you. So very cool. I can't wait for this conversation.
Excellent. So, Sheryl, just tell us a little bit about your background, how you kind of came along this path, and what made you so passionate about getting into this line of, no, I don't want to call it work per se, but getting into this line of conversation with people and teaching people basically how to say no.
Yeah, so it's funny, Alexis, you talked about, not that pressure to know what you wanted to do when you got out of school.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be an FBI profiler.
Ooh.
I was
Very
got
cool.
in high school and college, and I wanted to track down serial killers. And I had a mentor who said, okay, but what if you don't do that? And I was like, no, I'm going to do that. And I didn't have a backup plan. And it clearly, I am not an FBI profiler. So,
So that was not you on Homeland, I saw?
It was not me.
Oh, man.
No. It's funny. I'm so grateful. Because that does not appeal to me at all now as an adult. And I'm like, oh, thank goodness I didn't get in there. But I say that the reason I'm here and I'm doing what I do is because I did it wrong for 40 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
I was a people pleaser, epic, like award-winning people pleaser for most of my life. And it led to all the problems that it leads to. One of which being, I was trying to be everything to everyone. And most recently, when I was, this was 2021, 2-ish. So coming out of the pandemic, I was working full-time for an animal rescue. I was running my own content writing business. I was taking care of sick parents. I was volunteering for all the boards. I was there for all the friends, you name it, I was doing it. And I burned out to the point where I considered taking my own life. And it took a little while to realize, exactly what the problem was. But thankfully, a friend sent me an article on boundaries, and I read it and went, I don't have any of these. Maybe I should get some. And it really, it changed the course of my life. I figured I definitely needed to learn how to set them, but I figured I probably wasn't the only person who struggled. And I might as well bring people along on the journey.
I'm wondering, Sheryl, because I think back upon my journey a little bit. And one of the challenges I faced is when I kind of realized I set those expectations in my life and I wanted to put those boundaries into place.
Yeah.
Because I had never set them before, people didn't respect them when I put them into place. They thought I was kidding. They thought I was joking. They kept knocking on that door. To the point that I had to switch careers, which ended up being a blessing in the end, but I had to almost kind of clean slate it and get a whole new group and realize that from day one, when I stepped into that new role, I needed to establish realistic expectations around what my boundaries were. So that way there wasn't that preconceived, okay, she's always going to be there. She's always going to say yes. She's always the person we can count on, because the transition was too hard for people. What's your advice for people who are kind of facing that sort of situation? Because for me, I was lucky to pivot and switch, but I don't know that everyone's that fortunate or can do that.
It's funny. What we used to joke that getting out of animal rescue was like getting out of the mob. You literally had to move to get out of it and not tell anybody in your new location that you were the animal rescue person, because it would start all over again.
Right.
And I think from a boundary perspective, yes. And also from a burnout perspective, what people don't realize is you don't burn out, take a vacation, go to the spa, get your nails done, have, a nice bubble bath, and then go back to the same job. Doesn't work like that. And we are expecting people to just kind of like recover, and I please excuse me, I don't have the exact numbers, but It takes anywhere from 2 months up to 2+ years to recover from burnout. And it's not going back to the same place that you burned out at.
Yeah.
So to your point with boundaries, there are certain expectations that we have in certain roles and environments. And sometimes, yes, you can always start a boundary mid-relationship. However, there are certain environments that it's not going to work.
Yeah. And that's what I found. Alexis, I have a question for you. What I've been finding with some of my college level students is they feel they're invincible. They have all this energy. They're used to the late night cram sessions, the working around the clock to get projects done, to study for exams. And when I come along and I talk to them about pacing yourself, setting good time management, putting boundaries in, talking about how do you say no in a way, it's almost like they don't take me seriously. They feel like they can just crash and burn straight into their careers. And then that'll get them ahead. That'll get them a nice, resume to get started. And then they'll pivot and they'll do something a little bit different. Are you feeling some of that? Are you seeing some of that already starting at the high school level as well? Like, do you feel your peers understand the importance of this defining boundaries and even know how to do it?
I feel like that's definitely a struggle I see within my peers. I think that they push themselves a lot, and sometimes I recognize this in myself too. I think there's kind of a belief that we have to be the best or be the top in our class, and that we have to do so many things on top of another. And I think staying up to 1 a.m., studying so much, giving yourself more workload than you should, I think in the end it does get to you. And definitely with what you were saying earlier about burnout, I think that's very common within my peers. And it's oh, I can just take some energy drinks and stay up a few more hours. But I think that in the long run, it's very detrimental to our mental health, for sure.
Yeah, that's challenging. Sheryl, do you have any advice for, the Alexises of the world, or even college students who, may still be over 18, but still kind of governed under some guidance from peers and from parents and from role models, who might not feel like they can put those boundaries in place, or they should be putting those boundaries in place, or even don't know? What sort of advice do you have for them to have maybe those uncomfortable conversations where you are that young and you just don't feel like you could say to a parental figure or to a teacher or something, no, or I can't do that? How do you craft that in a way that it's a productive conversation?
Yeah, and look, you're in a difficult age and difficult time of life, because you've got that crossover between the school responsibilities, the family responsibilities, and so many people have the work responsibilities on top of it. Yeah. And I think it is a balancing act. And I described it, I was speaking to a group of college students on Friday, and I kind of described this point in your life as a soundboard. And if you think about a soundboard, you're pushing some levers up while other ones are coming down. And I think really the key to surviving that time, and we'll talk about communicating it in a minute, but is realizing you can't go full steam ahead on all of them at the same time. Yeah. You just can't. I think speakers explode or something when you do that. I don't know anything about AV, but especially because I just called it AV and it's not. So now I don't know anything about it. But
and Sheryl, I just nodded right along, it made the most sense to me in all the world. I'm over here going, yeah, typewriters.
But I think it is, yeah, some days, some weeks, your studying lever is going to go up, and you may have to tell a boss, I have to back off on hours, or you may have to tell your parents, there's only so much I can do responsibility wise in the home, or you have to tell your friends, I can't go out right now. I'm studying. A lot of those boundaries are boundaries we have to set with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just give you an example. And this is well in advance. This is in October. I have a keynote on, I think, October 23rd at 9 a.m. And Metallica tickets just went on sale at the Sphere. And my husband, he's trying to get all these tickets. And I was like, do not get October 22nd.
Oh, gosh.
I cannot go to a Metallica concert on Thursday night and then Friday morning go deliver. Do I want to see them? Yes. Am I going to find another time? Yes. But that's a boundary that I have to set and know, I'm not going to be my best self. Mm-hmm. And I think when it comes to communicating, whether it's with your family, your teachers, your boss, whoever that may be, I think that is the key to it, is how are you going to be your best self? How are you going to be able to show up and do whatever it is people want you to do? Because ultimately, most people want you to succeed. Not all. We're not going to put a blanket statement on that. Some people don't care. But most people want to see you succeed. And if that conversation is less I can't work this time, or I can't do this, and blah, blah, blah. If you come from this is all about me place, hackles are going to go up, defenses are going to go up. If you come from a place of, I want to do the best possible job for you, and I can't do that under these conditions, and obviously I'm using broad terms here. So I think flipping that around and making it about the other person. I want to do the best possible thing. We have the same goal here. We want to make those customers happy. We want to make sure dinner is served at home, whatever it is. We both want me to graduate and have a successful life and look like a good teacher. And this is how I can make that happen. This is how we can make that happen together. I think a lot of time, teachers, parents, bosses, whatever it is, they don't know what you have on your plate. And when you communicate to them, here's what I'm dealing with, how can we work together to make this work and both end happy? And I'm going to see if I can get this line right. No is not a sign of insubordination. It's an invitation to a conversation. Mm-hmm. So it's not just screw you, I'm not doing this. It's I want us to work together. I want this to work out. I want to reach end goal of X, Y, and Z. How do we do this together? Because this is what I'm dealing with. Can you help me prioritize? You can't delegate your schoolwork, but when you're at a job, is there something we can delegate? Is there, I think with people who want to work together and want to see you succeed, I think there's always a way to make it work. Mm-hmm. Did that help?
Yes, I think that resonates a lot with me. And I think a lot of times, especially within family, when those issues are brought up, it's very easy that, like you said, defenses go up and it kind of turns into a more of a heated argument instead. And I think those tips really help. And I think that's really helpful to me and also other teenagers that are also experiencing those similar problems. Yeah.
And keep in mind that everybody around you is also dealing with boundary issues.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, your mom, your dad, whoever, they're probably overwhelmed and super busy, and they can't do all this crap either. Yeah. So, it's all about having those conversations. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What I think is also a really big problem that teenagers like me face is balancing between like school life and also like friend like time and like having fun with friends. I feel like that's a very difficult balance that a lot of us face, especially those that like we want to like achieve our goals for like a specific college or something, but we also want to like maintain our like healthy relationships with our friends. Do you have any advice on that?
I do. I do. So I like to tell people there's three answers to an invitation or to a request on your time or help or whatever it is. There's yes, there's no, and there's yes and. And I think that yes and is really a powerful tool that you can use so that you do want to see your friends.
Yeah.
So when somebody invites you out to a party or invites you out to go do something, yes. And I have to be up early the next morning to study. So I'm going to have to leave by 9.
Yeah.
Whatever your specifics are, I'm making this up.
Mhm.
Yes, I would love to go and celebrate your birthday with you. I can't do it this night. How about we go out to dinner a different night?
Mhm.
It's kind of putting your own conditions on a request or an invitation. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with going out and having fun and being young. And please do, because life gets harder from here. I wish I could say it gets easier, but go and have fun. Have that boundary communicated early so that when you walk out the door at 9, you don't have your friend chasing you down and saying, why aren't you staying? I wanted you to stay the whole night, and
Yeah.
putting that guilt on you. I know another thing. Look, we've got drama, right? And we all want our friends to listen to our drama. And that's fine. And you want to be there and support your friends. So it's yes and. Yes, I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to listen to you talk about your problem for 15 minutes. Or or whatever that is. And then, hey, I have to go. I have an early test. Whatever it may be. Or hey, I actually promised to go out with my parents tonight. Let's talk in the morning. We have a tendency, especially no, I'm not even going to say especially when we're younger. We still do it when we're older. We have a tendency to take on everybody's problems.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Right. Oh yeah, for sure. I did that today. And when we take on other people's problems, we kind of give up our time and we give up our opportunity to work on our own stuff.
Yeah.
So be careful with what time and energy you're giving to something. And I'm going sideways here for a little bit, but when you've got that friend that's constantly complaining, not going to use the other word, you've got somebody that's constantly complaining about the same thing, like they've gone back to the same boyfriend 15 times, like they're just, their job is the worst and it's the same thing every time. Know that you are not helping them by listening to them.
Yeah.
Time and time. If it's a one thing, we got to work something out. Like, great, be a good friend. But if you're dealing with the same conversation every time, you're actually allowing them to get deeper. And Dr. Heidi, I think you probably can speak to this way better than I can. But you're letting them get into a rut, and you're not the one that can help them. They need a counselor. They need a parent. They need a therapist. They need somebody else. You are not qualified. So it's kind of a disservice to them to let that persist. And it's a disservice to you because you missed out on study time. You missed out on just sitting there and watching a TV, Instagram, whatever you guys do. And, letting your brain leak out for an hour before bed. So,
yeah, it's also about just protecting your environment, protecting the space around you, and the people that are closest to you should be the ones who, not to say that they're never going to vent or have a problem, but like Sheryl was saying, if they're constantly going back to the same issues, the same thing over and over again, even though they deep down know that that should be their boundary, they shouldn't be doing it, and you've already given them all the advice you can do, the unfortunate thing sometimes is to kind of cut them loose a little bit, put a little space between you and them, because it will continue. And this isn't just friends. This is just everything in life. This is a colleague. This is a boss. This is, other people that you're going to meet throughout your career, mentors, coaches, whatever they are. If they're constantly bringing bad energy into your space, it's not going to be productive over the long term for you. So you really, because that'll get into your own psychology as well and your own thinking. So you want to be careful about kind of who you surround yourself with.
Before I started this journey, I'm very close with my dad and my stepmom. She's since passed, but she would call me. I would call her every night to say goodnight, and she would dive into everything that went wrong during the day. And it was financial issues and like all the health issues and all these different things. And then I would lay down and I'd try to go to sleep. And now I've got my stress, which was plentiful. And then I just took on all her stress and I didn't sleep so good. And it got to the point where I first tried to set a boundary and say, hey, when I call, I'm just calling to say goodnight. I can't take on all of that negativity right before bed. And unfortunately, she didn't follow that. She wasn't able to respect that. So it got to the point where I stopped calling to say goodnight. I would talk to her earlier in the day because I still wanted the relationship. She was absolutely wonderful. And, she was like my best friend, but I couldn't handle that at night and she couldn't handle my boundary. So I had to just insulate myself.
Yeah, absolutely. So not to change gears, but to change gears.
Yes.
I'm going to bring up the elephant in the room, or maybe I should say robot in the room.
Or sloth in the room. Sorry.
Or sloth in the room. But, we got AI, right? We can't ignore that. It's like the hottest topic out there these days. And so I guess one of my questions there's so much, we could get into it on so many different levels, but people are so fearful of job loss and layoffs and that psychological safety that they're losing in the workplace. And so to me, I haven't really done any studying in this, so you're the perfect person to ask, Sheryl. I would naturally assume, the psychologist in me would naturally assume that would have a direct impact back to, like, we say early in the careers, people don't want to say no or put those boundaries in place because they want to see confident and all this. I would say, during times of fear of job loss and things like that, that people would be amping up and saying, yes, 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 and maybe foregoing some boundaries because of the issues that we're currently facing. Have you seen AI kind of cutting into the space a little bit? Are people struggling more with those boundaries because of it? Or are you seeing something completely different maybe?
I think whether it's AI or whether it's just recession, financial situation that we're in now. I do absolutely think people are fearful, and to some degree, that is very realistic. Yeah. I can't tell you that if you say no to your boss that you're not going to get fired. I cannot say that. And I am not a lawyer, so this is
not a good idea.
But what I can say is that we need to focus on sustainability. And I'll address AI as much as I can in a minute, but I'm not an expert in that either. Yeah. But I think we have to focus on sustainability. And that is, I can run level Mach 5. My parents used to say I was Mach 5 with my hair on fire. You can do that for a little while. Mm-hmm. You absolutely can. The project has to be done by a certain date. The something has to go out. The test is Friday and you have to be ready for it. You absolutely can do that for a little while. The problem is if that little while turns into life.
Yeah.
and it stops being we're I forget the word, but like we're really like rushing towards a product, as opposed to like we just have this workload that every day looks like a product launch, or every day looks like a final or a midterm. You can only do that for so long. So I think the conversation becomes, how do we do the best job possible without sacrificing our mental or physical health? And how do we do this for a long time, for the long term? And Dr. Heidi, when I did your summit, you know, that's what we were talking about is, yeah, nonprofit is rough. And you can Mach 5 with your hair on fire because everybody needs to be saved and everybody needs to be fed and all the things. But if it goes beyond, you know, goes to an extended period, now we are in danger. And it's not just us that's in danger, it's the mission that's in danger and the people that we help, because we can't be there for the long term.
Right.
So yes, I think it is a very realistic thought, realistic fear. And it's why I'm writing the book I'm writing now, because I think we need to learn to set boundaries and protect against burnout from a cultural and environmental and a structural standpoint, as opposed to just saying, oh, well, you work too much, that's on you.
Yeah.
I'll kind of dip into AI for 1 second. Truthfully, I am not an expert, and I am the person who doesn't understand how someone watched Terminator and said, this is a great idea, let's keep going. So,
or Will Smith's iRobot.
Please take this from where it's coming from. I'm scared for all of us, okay? But from a job perspective, I think there's certain things that AI can't do now and hopefully never will. Leadership, for example. I'm not gonna lie, I had a pretty good therapy session with chat the other day. I'm not gonna lie, it hit some points that my therapist and my husband and my friends never have. So, but I think you're gonna see new jobs pop up, just like we do whenever there's new technology introduced. There is going to be jobs that none of us understand can even be a thing yet. I do think jobs are going to be lost. They're already being lost. So I would say when it comes to that, like, what is the value that humanity brings to the job? And I think AI can be a great tool to take pressure off of people, not to replace people. And I think that's where, again, we have to look at the organizational structure and say, like, hey, yeah, you can get a machine to do these aspects of somebody's job. That doesn't mean you should lay that person off or you should minimize your workforce. It means your people get to sleep 8 hours at night and not hate you. So I think if we look at it differently, it would be less scary. I'm trying to get the word out. But yeah, I mean, it is a realistic fear right now.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, I think what it has really challenged us as a society is thinking about, you know, what is it taking away, but what are we gaining? And I think it's more of a pivot, really, than really eliminating. But I think where the fear, the psychological safety comes from is that fear of my job, the skills that I know can be automated. The skills that are needed, I don't have, nor maybe I'm not equipped for those. So I think it's revealing those ambiguities and revealing, you know, the need for empathy, the need for stronger leadership, the innovative thinking, that creativity, the things that the AI is not going to be able to do. And I think it's just eye-opening to some people, that fear of, okay, and then the question becomes too, who is responsible for creating that knowledge base? Do you know, are the companies doing it? Do the individuals go back and do it? So it's a whole nother level of talking about what do we do and how do we think and how do we change and how do we become more resilient. So definitely an interesting topic and something that I think a lot of us are talking about and just trying to navigate. But if you're up to it, Alexis has put together a little game for you.
Yes. Okay.
See that one
I'm scared, but let's do it.
So there you go, Alexis.
Wait, can I say no? Okay,
Of course.
I'm going to push the boundary and say certainly, but yes and no.
Yeah, exactly. No, go ahead, hit me. Let's do this.
Okay, I prepared this game. It's called Finish the Sentence. So I will say like the first part of a sentence, and then you can finish that. It'll all be about boundaries and like resilience and saying no. And you can also just like, this is a nice conclusion, and you can give your final opinions on some stuff.
Okay, all right. I'm intrigued.
Okay, the first one is burnout isn't about
self-care. Burnout is about personal boundaries and the structure of the environment you work in.
Yeah. Interesting. And then the second one is saying no becomes easier when
oh, you keep doing it. You got to practice. It's a muscle. It's like going to the gym. You don't go in and you lift 200-pound weight every, just out of the blue. Like you got to practice. You build up to it. So yeah.
Okay. Next one is the people who struggle most with boundaries are
anybody that never learned them growing up.
Yeah, I definitely think it's important learning how to say no, especially at an early age, for sure. Yes.
And I did a podcast this morning, and we were talking about, you don't get the how to be an adult book when you turn 18.
Yeah.
But we might start writing.
You didn't get your copy?
Yeah. Damn it. But there's an expectation with boundaries and a whole bunch of other things that, you're an adult, you should know how to do this. If you didn't learn that growing up, or even worse, it wasn't allowed, you're not going to know. You have to consciously learn that as an adult. So sorry, I'm giving you way longer answers than you probably want.
No, it's all
good. The biggest lie about self-care is
it's occasional. Self-care has to be a regular practice, and boundaries are self-care way more than having a glass of wine and a bubble bath.
Yes. And then last one is resilience is not.
Oh. Yeah. That's not the one to end on. Come up with an easier one. Resilience is not something you're born with. I think you, just like boundaries, you have to build up to it, and it's those little tests as you're younger, and hopefully they're just little and you don't have big ones. Some do, that prepare you for life.
Yes.
Sorry.
Oh, it was good.
That response. Yes.
Oh, do you have any more, Alexis, or was that the last one?
No, that was the last one.
Okay, you want to
end on a fun one. Come on.
Oh boy, that's the way we go out in here. Sheryl, we obviously greatly appreciate your time and being here with us today. what is coming up for you for this year? Like any big projects, any last things you want to share with us?
Yeah, so I am about finished with the first draft of my next book. This is
Amazing.
I don't have a title yet. However, it is about the impact of boundaries on workplace culture. What a boundaried workplace, TM, would, looks like, and how you can create that for your employees and for your own well-being and bottom line.
Nice.
So that's coming up. I'm doing a bunch of trainings with employee resource groups. I've got a couple of keynotes coming up. And on a personal note, I'm going on an Alaskan cruise in August. So I'm excited about that too. But yeah, the book is the big one for this year.
That is so cool. I'm jealous of the Alaskan cruise. That's something my husband really wants to do too. Someday.
I will share the details once we're back and tell you the best ways. So
thank you. Alexis, do you have anything else for Sheryl?
No more.
All right. You're gonna let her off the hook?
This time, yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Sheryl, for taking the time to be with us today. We greatly appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.